Mike Slater sitting in for Dr. Drew tonight. Let's discuss another police shooting, one that received little national media attention. It's the story of Dylan Noble, 19-year-old, unarmed, white man, killed by police in Fresno, California. Family obviously outraged, claiming police executed him. Now, police just released the body cam footage from this incident. Warning, we're being serious. This is extremely graphic right here. So hide the kids. Take a look.
Get down on the ground now! Get down on the ground now! Get your on the ground! Fresno Police Department! Drop whatever you have in your hand. If you come forward, you're gonna get shot, man. Get down on the ground now! 3 Baker 12, shots fired, suspect down, start EMS code 3. Let me see your hands. Keep your hands up, we cannot see his hands! Dude, keep your hands out. Quit reaching for what you've got. Keep your hands out. Dude, if you reach one more time, you will get shot again. Stop. Dude.
Quit reaching for your waistband.
Wow. As hard as that is to watch, I'm glad that was released. I think we need to see the truth. America needs to see the truth about what goes on here. Eric, I want to start with you, sir. Your experience was that man having a threatening posture? Did that deserve being shot 4 times by officers, twice while standing, twice while he was down on the ground? What do you think?
The first 2 shots were clean shots. The second set of shots, there's a shady part in that it seems like they could have approached him and made him surrender at that point because he was incapacitated at that point. He was barely moving. It seemed like they had enough time to stop him. But when his hand was behind his waistband, that was a clean shot.
Randy, you're a police officer, former police officer. The second 2 shots, because I think that's what's going to disturb most people. I think most people agree with Eric. The second 2 shots, a little more sketchy. Explain why those 2 shots were taken.
Okay, they had a couple different options here. I viewed the videotape actually a number of times, and it is very clear that he purposefully went for his waistband. You can see that his hand goes under his shirt where a weapon would normally be kept or clearly would be a threat. So I understand why they took the action that they did. Now, were there other options they could have done? They could have backed off, that's true. But when you're in combat mode, you're in combat mode. And when you still perceive that threat is there, then you have to take the action that you feel like you need to take in that split second of a time period.
Eric, go, speak on that, right? Once you're in that combat mode, once you make the decision to stop the threat, you can't just turn it right off like that right away. What do you think of that?
But stopping the threat includes approaching him, grabbing his arms, and putting handcuffs on him. These police officers are professionals. This is what they're supposed to do. No, it's not. People get arrested with weapons all the time, Randy. This man was shot. He was on the ground. They were 2 feet from him.
Eric,
you can't tell me that one guy has a gun on him, the other one can't approach him?
Let me show you guys this screen grab. I want
Being
everyone
a threat does not...
Guys, I want everyone watching to see the screen grab where you can see him walking towards the officers, right? Disobeying commands. 30 times he was told different commands. And you can see here, left hand in the air, but his right hand behind his back. And to speak on Randy's point, it looks like even when he's on the ground, he's still reaching for something behind him there. Tiffany, I want to go to you here because this could have been suicide by cop, right? You can hear in the clip he says, I hate my effing life. What do you make of that?
Yes. You know what? That was my first thought when I watched the video, when I saw that caption there, that maybe this was someone, and I don't know his mental health history. I don't think any of us do at this point. But I am a little troubled by it because it does feel like he was intentionally not complying with the law. I think that your guest said before, compliance is key. It's so key. He had ample opportunity to put both hands up several times, and nobody wanted this ending. It did not sound like the officers wanted this ending. They gave him every opportunity to comply, and generally when you have a situation of a suicide by cop, they intentionally don't comply because they want the officers to shoot them.
This is interesting. We have Tiffany, we have Eric in agreement that at least in the very beginning the first shots were justifiable. We'll start with you, Eric. Do you think if this was a black man that you would have the same reaction?
I don't care if a person is black, white, or green. I look at it from a legal perspective. I prosecute cases on the civil side. I've defended police officers. So I have a very objective way of looking at these cases, whether black, white, or whatever race. But the issue is whether or not it's a clean shooting. The first 2 shots were clean. The second ones are questionable.
Yep.
And I'm sure in their investigation, they're going to check it out.
I want to go on the phone to Warren Pabujian. He is the attorney for Dylan's father. Warren, back to my last question. Do you believe, does the family believe that this was suicide by cop?
Oh, absolutely not. There's no history of any type of mental illness. He had a good job. He had a girlfriend. And, you know, the point to make that I see a little bit differently is if you play the video beforehand, this was not a stop regarding a felony. This was strictly a traffic stop. So when the police had their vehicle, stopped their vehicles, they had their guns out even before the vehicle stopped.
Were they not told that they were looking for someone who was walking around with a rifle?
They were told that the person had camouflaged apparel 3 miles away, walking on foot, carrying a rifle. Now, just carrying a rifle in and of itself is not a felony. So this was a traffic stop. There's no indication when you listen to the dispatch that they're pulling him over because they suspected he happened to be this 25-year-old white male with a rifle walking down 3 miles away.
Do you think, Warren, Dylan may have been under the influence of anything when he was...
You know, I think it could be that he might have been under the influence of alcohol, but you got to put yourself in his position. He's 19 years old. He doesn't know why he's getting pulled over. Granted, he doesn't obey these commandments or these commands by the police officer, but they had a canine dog there before the first shot went off. There's a canine unit, and the officer with the shotgun brought the dog. And these shot intervals, the last 2 are between 5 seconds and 15 seconds, and they're 12 feet away. So at the end of the day, the last 2 shots are nowhere acceptable. I mean, that's an excessive force, at least in my opinion.
Annalise, what do you think? Excessive force?
I think excessive force cases are just about impossible to win, and this one is not a winner. You have a clean shot, the first 2, what people were discussing earlier. What I think you hit on, Mike, and I think this is an interesting question, why haven't we seen this yet? Because it's a white male? I think we haven't seen it yet because what's enthralling is the video, and we just got the video. The video was just released, and that's why I think we haven't seen it yet. I don't think it's a race issue.
Well, more to come, and we actually have more to come coming up next. We have the police chief tells us why the officers felt threatened in the first place, as Warren was just referencing there. And coming up later, race in America. Why? Why still is this topic tearing America apart? It's 2016, people. We're talking about the 19-year-old, unarmed, white man shot to death by Fresno police just the other day. Just released body cam video shows Dylan Noble walking toward the officers with one hand behind his back. I'm Mike Slater, sitting in for Dr. Drew. Thanks for being here. Here's what happens right before the cops open fire. Another warning video is graphic here. Take a look.
Over to your hands. Stop. Stop reaching.
Get down on the ground now.
Stop.
Get down on the ground now. Get your on the ground.
Stop.
No police department. Drop whatever you have in your hand.
Stop.
Don't forward. You're going to get shot, man. Get
Stop.
down on the ground now.
Back with Annalise, Tiffany, Randy, Eric, and Warren, who's Dylan's attorney, who's still on the phone. Annalise, I want to start with you. You said during the break, and I want to make sure I heard you right, that this hasn't been getting national attention because the video was just released. I would like to posit that this is not getting national attention because it doesn't fit the Black Lives Matter narrative. We know now that twice as many white people are killed by police officers every year as black people. That's why I don't think this is getting attention. What do you think?
Well, of course, the Black Lives Matter isn't picking it up. It's a white guy. It's not a black guy. So that doesn't fall in line with their movement. I think that the reason that the other media services haven't been picking it up because there is an issue right now with the general population, not just Black Lives Matter, but the general population being concerned about police violence, excessive force. The reason that we haven't seen this picked up to date is because we didn't have the corresponding video. But I don't fault Black Lives Matter for not picking this up. It's a white guy.
No, because the beginning of Black Lives Matter, if I remember correctly, was what you just said. It was about police brutality, and that is a righteous cause that should be championed. But because it was not brutal against the white guy, it's not getting attention because it's Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter, right?
Well, those are two different things. Those are two different things. And I think that it's unfair to take away what they're trying to say. What they're trying to say is we're looking at how it's a disproportionate impact on the African-American community, the excessive force we're seeing by the police. That is their battle cry. That's what they're talking about. And to say, well, we want to lump it in with everything else that's going on with the police, we're losing sight of what I believe one of their underlying issues is with focusing on what's happening with the African-American youth and how it relates with the police.
Well, I'm definitely down with that story, too. But, Randy, I want to go to you. So this is according to the police chief in Fresno. I don't understand this quote at all. So one of the officers said during his interview that he felt Noble was either taunting him or practicing pulling out a gun. I don't understand either of those two possibilities. What is he saying there?
I'm not really sure either. I mean, if you're practicing pulling out a gun, you're pulling out a gun. I don't understand that either. I mean, the conduct that I saw from him was very typical of suicide by cop, though. And the statement that he made just towards the very end was very, very important to this whole discussion. I hate my blanking life.
Yeah.
That is, suicide cop is a very real thing.
I want to bring it back to Warren, who is Dylan's lawyer. Again, Warren, it comes up, suicide by cop. I mean, that's the argument that the police department's making. We have a psychotherapist here who says this has all the signs of that. How do you prove that that's not what this was?
Well, I don't know, but I have young kids, and kids nowadays use that phrase when they're going to get in trouble. If he was under the influence and he thought he was going to get arrested, that's not a good thing for him, so that could have been the reason for the comment. We'll never know because they've shot and killed Dylan. But at the end of the day, he does not have any type of mental illness, psychotherapy problems. He was a good kid. He had a full-time job, and he graduated, and he has no criminal record.
Tiffany,
they knew that when they pulled him over. There was a traffic stop. There's no way you connect the rifle incident 3 miles away to this traffic stop. So I beg to ask, when you're pulling a person over, that's a felony situation that they're engaging their weapons.
I want to go, Tiffany, 30 seconds. How do you prove that maybe he did want suicide by cop now that, as the lawyer said, he's dead? What do we do now with that?
Yeah, I don't think that you necessarily can prove that, but I don't think that you can either. Because he doesn't have a history of mental illness doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't have mental illness or didn't have mental illness at the time of his death. As we know, and as Dr. Drew would tell you if he was here, at 19 is a critical age. Most kids, when they are diagnosed with either schizophrenia, depression, any of those diagnoses, they often are having their very first break and first bouts of depression, of
Warren,
voices, and all of those things. So,
Warren, I really got to go. What do you want the officers charged with, real quick?
Some type of manslaughter charge. Those last two shots were clearly in a situation they didn't. You know, it's got to be imminent danger for fear of their life or serious bodily injury. And if you're telling me that the kid lying down on the ground with 2 bullet holes is posing a serious bodily threat to you, whether he's reaching or not, I disagree.
Warren, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And give my best to the family, because no matter what we all think about this, it's still a tragic situation. Coming up next, interview about race.